All right, thank you very much. So, hi everybody. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of our group mentorship session. These sessions are, as described, group mentorship, where we can get some form of mentorship from our mentor, and you can get your questions answered from any or about anything that you need some kind of clarity on. So before now, we put out a form for people to fill. So we have some questions there. So we'll start reading from there. But before we start, I would like to introduce our mentor for today, Roger Norton. He's the head of product at Founders Factory Africa, and he's been a wonderful mentor at People in Product. Yay! Thank you, Roger. So thanks for joining us again today. So let's just get right into it. Our first question for today is from Comfort, and she's saying, what globally recognized product management certification can you recommend that can position you well for a job aside product school? I feel like this question was asked last week. I don't know if she asked it again because she wasn't here. But yeah, we can just answer it again.
Yeah, sure. The short answer is I don't know if there is one be all and end all. Product school is good. Reforge is probably the best. It's just incredibly expensive, so you need to get your company to pay for it. But there are a couple of others out there. I don't know them all off by hand. There are a couple of well-known ones. Yeah, there's a bunch of other more specific ones. A number of top product managers like Gibson Biddle or Teresa Torres or Melissa Perry all kind of have their own courses as well. They'll all be really good. If it's a well-known brand person that's like a top product manager or product leader, that's going to be a good bet as well. There is also basically some Scrum courses that you can do. I got into a little bit of hot water the other day for saying that a Scrum course is a good indicator of a bad product manager if you've done too many. But it's more because if that's the only courses you've got, then you're too one-sided and you think that Scrum is the answer to every problem you have, which it's normally not. But doing one Scrum course or one or two Scrum courses and balancing that with some other ones can help. But I don't think there's a single, like it isn't like a Harvard or Ivy League selection of it, other than sort of product school and Reforge.
All right, thank you very much. I don't think she's on the call today again, but I hope she listens to the recording and gets the feedback. So the second question is from Kirsten. Kirsten is asking, how would you approach a 2+-year-old health tech organization with a headstrong founder that has exhausted sorry, let me just get to the next page. That has exhausted angel and bootstrapped funding by spending it on a new web-based platform that hasn't been adopted by any. See, I'm going to break this question into two because it's really, really long. So let me see how I can break it into two that will make sense. Just give me a minute, please.
I think I've got it. It's quite a common problem. They've got a headstrong founder who's spent most of the funding that they have managed to raise on a product that customers don't that they've built this massive product and customers aren't using it. That's what I'm assuming has happened.
Yeah, but towards the end of his question, he said, okay, that hasn't spending on a new web-based platform that hasn't been adopted by any user side. The users are patients, practitioners, internal users, stroke ops prefer existing tools. That is WhatsApp. This question.
Yeah.
My answer was to ignore the platform and leverage what already exists in the healthcare market with sub 35 appointments over time, but it wasn't taken very well. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to paste it in the chat.
Okay, paste it in the chat.
It's like six sentences long, and I don't know what the person is asking specifically. And then the person is not here as well. So let me just paste the question in the chat from Kirsten. So Kirsten is asking, how would you approach this with a headstrong founder that's exhausted this funding, spending it on this, and that platform has not been adopted by any user side because users prefer existing tools?
Yeah, so what they've built is they've built what the founder thinks the market needs instead of what the market really needs. That's the first problem. And so they've spent all their money building a product that the founder is convinced will work, but there's no actual data to show that this is what the customers really want. It's a very common problem, specifically with headstrong founders in Africa. They seem to love that. But the thing to do is try and identify. Normally, when you've built a whole big platform, there's one or two pieces of it that actually are useful. And so what you need to try and do is find out which one of those one or two pieces can be useful in its own. So I'm going to take a little bit of a segue and go more generically around marketplace businesses. But typically marketplace businesses, there's 5 ways of launching a marketplace business. And the first way, which is the absolute worst, is just to throw a ton of money at both sides of the marketplace, the supply and demand, because that's kind of what they've got. They've got a health platform marketplace. They've got patients on the one side. They've got health practitioners on the other, and nobody's using it. But so you need to get one side. So you either throw a ton of money in advertising or incentives or paying people to actually get them to change behavior. So when patients come in, there's actually healthcare workers on board, and that when healthcare workers log in, there's actually patients and they can make revenue from it, and they can get money. Normally, that's the worst way to approach it, just because it's incredibly expensive and you're going to end up losing a ton of money through that. So the other option is to try and be one side of the marketplace. So can you be the patients or can you be the supply, i.e. hire one nurse or two nurses or one doctor, or find a doctor who is a friendly doctor that you can pay a stipend to, or a thing for them to always be there on the supply, and then you can just focus on getting the one side of the market. So for you to sort of pay for one half until you can get enough momentum, and then you can bring some others on and slowly build the marketplace up over time. Another way to do it is to focus on a very narrow niche. So if you focus on, even elderly care would be quite big, but if you focus on like eye surgery, it's far easier to match the supply and demand in eye surgery if everyone going to that website is looking for an eye surgery, or what that looks like. So that's kind of how Amazon started. They started out with books. They were just a platform for books, and then they slowly expanded into a lot more than that. But so you kind of focus on a very narrow niche. And then the last side is to identify how to add value to one side of the marketplace without needing the other. So can you use your tool as an admin tool for the healthcare workers, that they can use it regardless of whether you're bringing them patients or not? Can they use it with their existing patients? Or is there a way that you can allow patients to apply and then you just refer them on to other healthcare workers that aren't necessarily as leads, that aren't necessarily using your platform? So is there value that you can deliver to one side of the marketplace without the other? And so I think I said 5, but those are the 4 main ways to start a marketplace. So just in summary, you can either pay a ton of money and just throw money at the problem, and that is a way to start a marketplace. It's not a particularly good one. The second one is to focus on a really narrow niche and service a niche where you can get saturation quite easily and then expand. The second one is to find a way to deliver value to one side of the marketplace without needing the other. And the last way is for you to actually be one side of the marketplace. So you hire the nurses, or you hire the things, or you go and find the patients and then continually feeding patients into the marketplace, and then you have service providers, so you can control the one side of the marketplace. Everything I've just said is kind of covered in a blog post that I wrote a couple of years ago, but it unpacks that in a bit more detail. So when you are kickstarting a marketplace, those are typically the tactics you've got. Now, if you've got a product in the marketplace that no one's using, his suggestion was to ignore what they've built, basically throw all the money away, tell the founder what he's got is completely wrong, and then to start from scratch and basically try and solve kind of what they should have done in the first place. So he's not wrong in that, but is try and solve the problem with existing technologies and slowly automate and streamline that and build it up to a larger product. The problem with that is the founders built this because they think they're right. And you've just gone and said, no, you're completely wrong. I've got a better way to do it. Let's do this. And so that you're always going to run into conflict. I'm not surprised it wasn't taken particularly well. So the alternative to that is to say, out of these 5 or 10 or 20 features they've got, is there one thing that if we hid all the code, commented out all the other code, all the other menu features, and we just stripped it down to one thing, can we get people using that? So can we strip this huge platform, can we strip it down to a single feature or 2 features, and let's deliver that and get engagement on that. And over time, we can turn the other stuff back on. And it's very counterintuitive because you're like, oh, we've built all this stuff, we may as well leave it in. The problem with that, though, is it's incredibly confusing to consumers. And often then there's just so much stuff that doesn't work because you don't have both sides of the marketplace yet. And there isn't enough volume. So it just gets incredibly confusing. So finding a way to actually slice the platform down and either copy the front end and create another version, a light version of the front end that you can slowly migrate features to, or just comment out the code, or try and find some way of delivering just one app or something, one part of the app ecosystem, because it's normally multi-platform, if I've played this game before. And so that's kind of how I would approach it, is to try and identify one piece of one feature that is valuable in what you've already built, and try and strip the scope down to just that and get people using that instead of throwing it away and starting with exactly what they've already got. Like, is there a better tie-in, or how can you learn your way to a more effective product? It was quite a long-winded answer.
I understand that, but Kirsten is not on the call, so I hope the person gets this recording, because that's a very, very bulky answer to a bulky question. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roger.
Does anyone else on the call have a follow-up question to that? There was quite a lot in there.
Yeah.
Does anyone want a clarification, or feel free to put your hand up or unmute yourself or drop it in the chat.
Okay, while we wait for people to respond, let's move on to the next question from Temisa. Temisa is on the call, so I'm happy about that. The first person that asked questions that is actually on the call. So Temisa is saying, how can one learn about fintech infrastructure and markets in a new African country? I am in Nigeria. I recently got a job that is using for the Ugandan markets.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. How would I solve that problem? There are some websites. I was on the talking about. I don't think you're going to find a single place where you'll find all the answers. GMSA, I think it was, or GSMA. Data. I found a really nice website the other day around mobile money. Yeah, gsma.com, and they had a bunch of really interesting things. We could pull a full report of which mobile money operators are active in which countries and which products are they do, like what types of lending or mobile money services do they have or do they use. So it was from this website. I'll just drop it in the chat here. So there are websites like that's specifically around mobile money, but there are research organizations that exist that do document this and analyze that and look for that. Beyond the mobile money one that I've recently had to go look for, I don't know where you would find sort of banking penetration or which banks are in which countries. There is that data. You just need to do a bit of digging online. I don't know a particular source for that. I don't know if you want to ask a clarifying question, or if there's something I'm missing in that question.
I just
on
want
the
to
call.
add something to that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so like anything in life, if you want to learn about any new thing, especially because you have foundational knowledge, you just want to know more about that thing because of maybe a new market, it's just to find out places where you can actually read about stuff. If you can and have the budget, go to the country, the actual country. And so let's say our company now, or my company has been building for Kenyans for some months. But when I actually went to Kenya, things just became like easier. You can actually speak to people. You can actually, meet with people who work in companies where you want to partner with, and they're talking to you about, the way payments are done there. Like, it's totally different from the way we do payments here in Nigeria. Like, you need to actually understand how people want to make payments. If you're bringing a new solution to them, you have to understand how they currently do that thing, even though it's an indirect competition, like maybe a traditional way of using cash, and you want to bring a digital way of making payments. You just have to find out what your direct and indirect competition is. Like I said before, if you have the budget, please travel there. Find out how they currently do their payment solutions right now. You mentioned fintech. That's why I'm saying payments, because fintech rises and falls on payments. So you need to actually know, and to know, you need to actually read, learn, talk to customers, talk to people. You have Ugandan colleagues, talk to them, talk to the designer, the devs, everybody. Read blogs about the Ugandan market, search on Google, ask Chat GPT, ask anybody that you can ask. Just get more knowledge. The same way, if you want to learn a new language, you start looking for apps that will teach you. You start, mentioning some words that you're saying back to the app. You start, it's just the same. It's just the same way you should do with this kind of situation. One more time, I think this is the third time I'm saying, talk to your team. They should create a budget for you to go to Uganda.
Definitely get on the ground. But I quite like that idea, actually, of asking ChatGPT as well. So you can ask ChatGPT, what are the biggest reports that cover banking infrastructure or payments infrastructure in Uganda, and it'll go and find you all the reports, and that'll be a good place to start a search to go, and then you can go and look for all those reports and go and find them. So I think I'm a huge fan of finding ways of breaking that into what we're doing. Does anyone else have a market research tip or technique that they've used that we haven't mentioned?
Why is everybody so quiet?
Hi, Roger.
Okay, thank God.
There's a kid.
Thank God. Thank you, Akinde. Thank God.
Hi, Roger. Hi, Princess.
Hi.
I think you already mentioned it. I'll just stress it a little bit further, which is buying reports. There are research companies. There are companies who dedicate their time and effort to do research, quantitative and qualitative research in different sectors across the economy, across different countries. So that's something we used to do. And that's buying some of these reports. Usually those reports are not free. So you have to research. I was trying to remember the name so I could drop the link, but when I do, I would probably drop the link. So aside all the other options that you've mentioned, there are dedicated reports, as in detailed reports, like 300, 400-page reports on different sectors in these areas that you can buy, and that will be a good springboard to at least have some background knowledge about some of these sectors and whatever you want to do. Thank you.
Gartner is produced a lot of those reports. Gartner, CB Insights, Bloomberg. There's a bunch of
Gartner was the one I wanted to remember. Yeah. Thanks, Roger.
Sure thing.
All right. Thank you, Akintunde. So, Temeka, do you have any question, or was your question answered?
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Oja, and the rest. It's very clear. It's more of even the push and just having this hearing the general feedback and also answer to the question makes it a little bit easier because you have more options to choose from. Now, I've been doing one or two, trying to search for videos on YouTube, or nothing tangible. But I think the idea of buying a report might be something I would also explore just to get that high level details and information as well. Thanks.
Okay.
Those GSMA reports are free, by the way, so you can download those for free. There are a bunch of free reports too.
GSMA reports.
Yeah, I just dropped it in the chat. There's gsma.com, and then I dropped a link to the actual 2021 report, which is the latest one they have.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, thanks.
The one thing worth noting as well is often payment infrastructure or fintech infrastructure works in regions. So like what works in Nigeria, it was likely to be in Ghana. It's not going to be exactly the same mix, but there'll be a fair bit of overlap or similar type companies. I think in East Africa, M-Pesa is just massive in Kenya and less so everywhere else. But there will be certain similar companies, but probably at slightly different ratios. So even researching a couple of adjacent markets should give you a much better indicator of the different players. And don't only look at Uganda, because don't only look at Nigeria. It's often you need to look at Senegal, look at the other countries around Nigeria and see what happens in those markets, because that'll also influence it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, Uda.
Sorry, before we move on, one more thing. Temisa, please just send a message on Slack or remind me. I know someone that is building a product for the Uganda market, so I'll do an introduction, and then you guys can, hit it off from there.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So the questions I read out are the questions that came in through the forms. So now it's open for the people who are in this call. If you have a question, or if you have anything that you need some kind of clarity on, you can just raise your hands, and then I'll add it to the queue, and then you would answer. So, or you can put it in the chat section if you can't speak where you are. But if you can speak, you can just indicate by raising your hands, and then I'll call you. So while we wait for that to happen, I have a question. So someone called me, and he was asking if people prefer to be paid in their local currency, or they prefer to be paid in USD. So he gave his reactions or his reasons why he was on a certain side. And I thought about it just now, and at the end of the day, after the discussion, the discussion was inconclusive. We didn't have a particular thing. So I'd just like to hear from you. You are the head of products, and I'm sure you're involved in some sort of hiring. And how do you think maybe founders, startup founders, co-founders, or senior product people on their team should approach things like this? Because some people are now saying, oh, if you don't pay USD, I'm not going to work in your company. So even if you are you're a Nigerian company that has Nigerian staff, you are somewhat under some kind of pressure, not everybody, to pay in a certain currency. So I just want to know, what do you think? Should people just pay in their local currency or USD? Which one is better? Does it matter?
Sure. So you're not under some kind of pressure. It is, you have a legal obligation to pay in the currency that is legal tender in that country, which means you need to pay a Nigerian company in Nigeria, by Nigerian law, needs to pay in Naira. It's the same in South Africa. You can't pay your staff if you're a South African company employing South Africans, South African owned in South Africa, you have to pay your company your employees in rands. You have to invoice in rands. You can't invoice in dollars. So you have to pick to that, and that's just your local banking regulations. Now, that's the law. They have some. You said some pressure. The pressure is that is the law. How compliant you choose to be, or how much you can afford to take risks, is a completely different story. So at Founders Factory Africa, we were always, our team in Nigeria was consulting to the US branch of Founders Factory Africa, because we have a US branch, a South African branch. a subsidiary, and they were consultants to that. But now we're starting to employ. We've got about 12 people now in Nigeria, and the Nigerian bank has reached out to us saying, "Hey, you're doing a lot of business here. You're investing in a lot of startups. You're employing Nigerians. You actually need to have that thing." So this year we've had to actually open up register a local company, and we're working through Workforce to pay the local team. But so they're employing the team on our behalf. So there are companies that you can work through that. Now, it's been a hotly contested issue around. All of a sudden, what we realized is some of our team weren't paying income tax or pay PAYE, or because as consultants, it's your obligation to pay the tax, not the company's. Whereas now, when we're paying them a salary, we pay them the same cost the company, but now they're losing 20 or 30% in income tax because they weren't paying tax before that. They lose 20% of the income. So it's as a company, you have to make a decision as to where you can legally pay and how much you can legally pay. What we have is we have to pay in Naira. That is like the rule, but like, I mean, we have to comply with the laws of the land. But what we have is we rebalance that every, I think it's 3 months, I think is the way we're operating it. So we'll rebalance that to a US base. So their contract will be in the Naira equivalent, but it'll be readjusted to the dollar equivalent every 3 months. And so whatever they sign on, whatever that dollar value is, every 3 months we'll adjust the salary to take account for the Naira fluctuations, or if the currency does what the Ghanaian said he did, which was like debased by 40% in an entire year. You're basically earning 40% less all of a sudden, or your money doesn't go as far. So in that case, we would be readjusting, paying in the local currency, but readjusting every few months to keep international parity with what they should be earning, to compensate for the currency fluctuations. So I think that kind of depends on the company, how legal the company wants to be. If you're a small Nigerian startup and you want great talent, if you feel like you can take the risk to avoid taxes and the tax ban for a little while until you get to a certain size, you can probably do that. This is definitely not a recommendation, but it is an observation.
All right, thank you. So that means companies are required to pay in their local or in the employees' local currency.
If you're employing locals in a country over a certain size or a certain volume, there's normally a rule that you have to have a company in that country and you have to pay them in the local currency. And that's like a law. It's not, how well it's complied with or enforced is, I also don't know. So.
Some companies are shaking
not a tax and Forex expert.
Let's not break the table. Anyway,
the CBN is trying to crack down on that sort of stuff. So.
They're trying to crack down on it.
Same in Kenya. I mean, you've seen all the stuff that's happening with Flutterwave, and they're trying to cut down on this international accounts and international money movements through the accounts and have better KYC. They're starting to try and lock down a lot of that. So.
That would affect a lot of people who earn USD here, but that's a discussion for another day. So someone posted a question, or two people posted questions. The first one is, it's an anonymous question, so we'll just answer. How do you suggest I ensure my efforts as a PM are being recognized?
I think it's the same question. They just entered it twice. Or it's a lead on from the previous question. Because they say, my current role is the intersection of both product and business. I'm managing a new product we're yet to scale. However, my CEO is mostly only interested in the growth numbers and not my efforts as a product manager. How do you suggest I ensure my efforts as a product manager are being recognized? So the first thing I would say is that the definition of product for me is delivering customer value in line with business objectives while understanding technical constraints. So you should be, as a great product manager, you should be living at the intersection of those three things. I have this. I was just running someone through this earlier today. Allow sheet screen share. Are you seeing my screen? No. Uh-oh, I think I just did something. They just stopped screen sharing. Oops. I blocked it instead of allowing it. Anyway, but yeah, so there's this image where you have three concentric circles of a business strategy, or customer value, and technical constraints. And where those three intersect is where product lives. It's around delivering value to customers in ways that make money, that while understanding technical constraints, so while guiding the technical constraints. A product manager is not just there to focus on the technical constraints, or not just there to focus on the customer, or not just there to try and build a roadmap on the business strategy. You're constantly moving between those three areas. So if the CEO sounds like he's very interested in those top two, which is the business value, how do you make money, and how do you deliver value to customers, and you're trying to focus on, well, how do we actually ship what's important in order to enable that? And so I think what's missing is the connection between how you prioritize and ship more effectively will create more value for customers and more revenue for the business. And so it's a combination of those things that you need to get right. And if you're trying to manage the dev team or write user stories or create a product strategy, you need to be tying in the business strategy into that. You need to be tying in, how does shipping faster deliver more value to customers? How does shipping this feature over that feature, or how do you decide what gets built? That should be measured against what delivers more value to customers and what aligns better with our business strategy. So if he's very growth and revenue focused, that's not a bad thing. That's a good filter to bring into how you decide what the dev team should be building, or how you guide what they should be building. But it's your job to tie together. We can deliver more value if we fix this problem or this bug, or we can create more revenue if we launch this feature to upsell to those customers. And that negotiation of how those three spheres overlap, and where they intersect, is the product management role. Like, that is the encompassing of your role. So if you're in a group of stakeholders that need a lot more of the business and the customer value justification, make sure that when you're planning the technical roadmap or technical implementation, that fits into the language or the objectives of customer and business, and how doing these things creates more value than anything else that you do. And so that's what I would challenge you to do, is try and find a link between your day-to-day of managing the teams and the way you're delivering value and the way you're executing, in line with customer value or revenue. And ideally, you need to be able to tie those things together. Anonymous, does that answer your question?
We don't know who Anonymous is.
Dig deeper on.
I believe that he must have answered his or her question. So
this is a safe space if you,
yes,
if you want to be anonymous.
But I can understand, because when the person says my CEO, and then we know who the person is, and then we start looking at the person's CEO, So yeah, I understand that. So if you have a question, please just raise your hands or drop your question in the chat, and we'll be able to answer. If you want to ask anonymously, you can also do that using the activities option. If you're using your mobile, it's the three dots that show options. Activities, if you're using your web, it's just the triangle, circle, and square icon at the far right. Does anybody have a question? Hello. Hi, Odera. Odera must win. Odera must win this thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Odera must win. Well, I hope this I hope my question helps everybody, but I feel like it's a selfish question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Since there are no questions. So Roger, I look at what you do, and I like what you do, right? In terms of heading product for a venture capitalist company, helping other people build their businesses. So for a young it's a young product manager like myself, what are the things you would advise that I do in order to be able to work? I don't want to become you right now, but then to become you in a couple of years. I'm better than you in a couple of years. So what are the things that you would advise? Yeah.
Yeah, my path is a difficult one to follow. I kind of stumbled my way through it. As Steve Jobs says, the dots are only joined in hindsight, not in foresight. So yeah, don't try and be me is the short answer. I think it's maybe answer that in a different way. In that, what makes me valuable in the role that I'm currently in is that I've probably worked with about 75 different startups, working alongside the founders to help them identify what it is they need to build and then to build and ship that. And just the number of reps and the repetition of what I've seen helps me pattern match quite a lot. So when I get another founder comes to me with a problem, I can go, oh, I've seen something similar to this before. This is how we solved it. And actually, this is what we did, and it was wrong. So let's rather try this that time. So that's the one thing that makes me valuable. The other thing, specifically in a venture capital firm, is a lot of people are sector expertise. Like we have really great product designers and really great growth experts, but a number of them don't actually understand the business aspect. So working as an early employee in a startup or being on a founding team, trying to build your own startup, even if it fails, it forces you, being a founder or being the one responsible for hitting pay or the salaries is a completely different mindset and way of thinking that you just can't get otherwise. I've been a founder 3 times. One was kind of iffy, but it was just for a few months and we shut it down pretty quickly. But the other times, like I've employed people, I've run teams, and I empathize a lot with what the founders are going through. I've raised funding. I've raised over $2.5 million in angel funding and seed funding across various different ventures for my own companies, where I was the majority shareholder in trying to build that. And so the combination of that, as well as sort of the reps that I've done on building products and running tech teams and actually shipping live products, makes me quite a unique fit for the role that I'm in currently. But there are very few venture capital firms that actually need people like me, so the pool is pretty small. So yeah, it's more about thinking about the type of role that you want, and then thinking about what are the skill sets that would set you apart from somebody else. Like if there's plenty of people great at product on the continent, but very few actually have the early stage startup. Like they don't know how to raise funding. They don't know what investors look for. And when I'm coaching a startup, it's very different to if I'm coaching an early product in a larger organization, or it's very different if I'm coaching a small business that isn't trying to have maximum or massive margins and swing for the fences. It's very different advice that you give in those different scenarios and different ways of work. So just by getting the reps in the beginning of your career, I think you want to go deep just to build a solid base to stand on. In the middle of your career, you want to go broad. So reach out, do a couple of different types of things that sort of, you've got the pillar to stand on, but you're building a bit more breadth of what it looks like. And then as you get more senior in your career, you start narrowing in on where you really add value and where this unique collection of experiences that you have, how that allows you to do things that no one else has that collection of experiences. So they can't do it quite in the same way that you do. And so I would be intentional about building a unique collection of skills by the time you get to 12, 13 years in product or in building tech. That's kind of where I'm at. So you wouldn't be able to follow my path because it's just such a different time, but you can follow that strategy of go deep first, build something solid to stand on. For me, it was actually operations and operations manager and COO and moving in that space. And then I built my own company for a while, and then I ran an agency that built tech for startups. But that was all going deep and then broad. And now I'm starting to focus in on innovation, product leadership. So thinking about how do you go from 0 to 1? How do you build new products in the various different ecosystems or mannerisms, and how do early teams come together to build effective products? And that's kind of where I'm narrowing in at. in the sort of late or mid to late part of my career. So it's more, think about that more as like a Christmas tree, if you will. So start super narrow, go broad in your mid-career and get diverse experience, and then start working out what that combination of experience make you uniquely good at, that you can be some of the best in the world. And that is sort of how I think about your career as you're building forward. But the times change so quickly and those skills change so quickly. Product wasn't even a thing 10 years ago. Yeah, it was just kind of starting out. So don't get too caught onto a single path and think that's the only way to go. Go more and more now. We're building careers that are collections of interests and collections of experiences that make us completely unique for when the world moves somewhere and you just happen to have been doing this for longer than anyone thought it was realistic or reasonable. So that's kind of would be kind of my career advice if you really want to get ahead and stand out.
All right, thank you very much. I think it's very clear. I like what you've said, and I do appreciate it. So yeah.
Cool.
All right, Roger, we have 2 new questions in the anonymous chat.
Cool. The one is asking for courses to kickstart. I touched a bit on that in the beginning of this call. Feel free to watch the recording for my thoughts. Short answer is I don't really know of any, but there are a couple out there that are worthwhile. If you want a one-on-one with me, and the reason I do these group mentorship sessions is so that I don't have to have 40 one-on-ones or 20 one-on-ones every few weeks. So these are the opportunities for you to ask the questions. The easiest way to get as much time of mine as you like is to build a startup and come apply at Founders Factory Africa. And then you get unfettered access to me. You can set up as many calls as you want. Some startups, I have calls every 2 days with them, trying to get them to ship faster. So that's the short advice. Yeah, and then there's one last question there, like your candidate advice.
Before you move on, Roger, before you move on to the last question, I think to add to the former question, the person can also put the question on the questions channel and, tag you, because for every one-on-one, there's always like a question at the back of the person's mind. The person wants to know maybe guidance in your career, how to move forward. Oh, I'm stuck and I need some kind of guidance, those kind of things. So collect your thoughts, put them in questions format, and then you can post it on the questions channel and tag Roger, or you can send it to his DM. If he is available to read the DMs, he would read and then respond to you. So this is our version of our one-on-one with Roger. Having him here is the actual one-on-one where you can ask him the question, because he's unable to do as much as he can do, if he's going to do like one-on-one. He's going to be fast-paced. I mean, he has a 9 to 5 and, other initiatives that he handles. So yeah, just adding to that, you can make use of the questions channel, tag him, reach out to him via DM. When he's free, he would respond to you, and then use this group mentorship session as your one-on-one. Yeah, so we can go to the last question now.
100% what Princess said. Your candidate advice for someone just starting the product management journey. I'd like to know things you think need to be learned or done to succeed in the journey. So yeah, I've said this a couple of times before as well, but the product is such a broad spectrum. There is everything from growth to technical team management, or like engineering team management, to marketing, to product ops. There's like product leadership, there's analytics, there's so many parts of it. And when you're starting out your career, you can't know them all. Like there's way too much. So my general advice to people just starting your career is pick one thing that resonates with you, with some prior experience, be that in customer discovery, and be really great at how you ask questions, the different types of questions or ways to gather data, ways to do research. Like if I'm looking at an early stage product, if I'm looking for an early stage product associate or something with somebody with 1 year or less experience, I normally have a particular task in mind that I need them to help with. It's either going to be doing more custom interviews, or setting up our analytics, or just running tickets on our dev things, or doing sprint planning, or writing user stories, or PRDs, or like whatever that. Like everyone will have an idea of what they need help with and why they need to bring a junior person on to normally offload some of the stuff that they don't actually have time to actually do properly and dedicate the time to. So they need somebody to do most of it. So the easiest way for you to get ahead is to identify what people are looking for, or what you're good at or what you resonate with, and just do a couple of courses to be a specialist in that. Go deep in that first. If that's customer discovery or analytics or Scrum and dev team running, or like burn down charts and using all that kind of jargon, or whatever that like product operations of just streamlining ways of work. It could be like no code development, or like building prototypes and rapid solution prototyping super quickly. Like there's plenty of ways which you can build a differentiator or build something that, and when you apply to most jobs, they're going to say, oh, that's not the person we're looking for at all. But there's going to be a couple that are like, oh, that's exactly who I'm looking for. And you're going to be a head and shoulders above everyone else who applies. So the easiest way to stand out in the beginning is to get that differentiator or build something that makes you completely unique to everybody else who's applying, and then try and find the roles that are looking for that level of uniqueness or that particular flavor of it. I know that's anonymous, but did that kind of answer your question?
We don't know. The person would be able to respond right now. So we still have about 10 minutes or 9 minutes. Does anyone have any other question they would like to ask before we close for the day? Anybody? Somebody?
So I just want to quickly add to what Roger had said about finding a niche for yourself in product management, so to say. So that's something we do at my company. So most people that come into my business or my company, they come in as software testers, because we are such a small team, but we need to test very effectively so that we don't waste time. So they all come in as software testers, and then while they are doing that, we work on their different strengths and then put them on different teams. So I'm just trying to say that this thing, what he said, is really real. It works and people practice it. So yeah, I hope you find your niche and then it's help to get your job here.
Yeah, software testing, that's a great thing you can double down on as a unique skill that makes you exceptional at, that other people applying are going to be very, very broad and generalist, and you're going to be great at the one thing they need, and then you can grow and expand into the others. Thanks, Odera. Great feedback.
All right. Thank you, Odera. Thank you, Roger. Since we don't have any more questions, I think we'll have to end the session here. A very big thank you to Roger once again. I don't know if you can hear my clapping.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
Yeah, we hope to have a physical meeting with Roger this year. I don't know when.
Yes, we will. We will. I do need to go to Nigeria somewhere in the first half of the year. So sometime in the next 4 months, I will be in Nigeria. I just don't know when. So.
Is it my network?
It's your network. It's your network. Roger,
yeah.
You hear me? Okay, cool.
All right.
I aim to be there in the next 4 months, so we'll sort something out.
Okay, and also
right.
Small announcement. At the beginning of the call, some of you were not here. So we're hoping that a few people who attend our call, our community sessions, will be able to go to the new Founders Factory office in Lagos, and they would have a very nice time. They would have a chat with the product people there, and then they would have a tour of the office. So we're still having discussions around that. So keep attending our sessions and stand a chance to win. I mean, Odera has been standing a chance, and she has been fighting for her rights.
I'm fighting. I'm desperate.
Exactly. So yeah, thank you very much for joining the call and for always supporting us and joining our calls. So see you next week for interview prep, and then the upper week for group mentorship sessions. We have the group mentorship sessions every 2 weeks, and then we have our check-in calls every Saturday. So thank you again. God bless you. Have a great night. Thank you, Roger, once again. We really appreciate the work.
Everyone.
Yeah. Roger is saying.
Thanks, everyone.
So, yeah.
Good luck for the election. Stay safe.
Thank you, Roger.
Safe. Go and vote, but be safe while voting.
Good night.
Thank you.
Be safe. Cool. Ciao.
Samuel, the recording, when the recording is ready, we'll send it to you. If we don't send it tonight, please remind me, like tag on the questions channel tomorrow, so I'll send the link to you. It takes a few minutes before Google sends the recording to us. Thank you.
Bye, Roger. Bye, Princess.
Cool. Bye, Kinsey.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Princess.
Aki today did not tell me
Bye,
bye. Oh. It's all right.
Ah,
Fine.
Bridget, sorry. Okay. Oh, my darling, I'm so sorry.
Bye,
dear.
guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.